A new dawn has arrived, my friends, because we are here on What Culture Football, and while you may be used to seeing this finger of power give the ups and downs for pro wrestling, now I'm going to turn my attentions to the Premier League, and I'm going to turn my attentions to football. And nothing is safe, everything is up for grabs, and we will go through the weekend and the matches, and the good bits will get an up, and the bad bits will get a down, and you won't agree because you're biased. We're all biased when it comes to football. If you're an Arsenal fan like me, you just want to give that an all ups, and if you're a Spurs fan, I mean, that works, and I'm an Arsenal fan, I want to give that all downs, but I won't do that. I'll be nice, but you're more than welcome to do that in the comments. That's just what the sporting world is all about. My name is Simon from What Culture Football. Let's up the downs for the Premier League weekend that has just finished, the debut weekend of the 2019-2020 season. And we'll start with the down, just because I thought it'd be funny to, kick things off with a negative vibe, because most people think I was going to come on here and be really positive. And that is despite a whole host of new faces and a whole bunch of new players being employed, two different football clubs, we didn't actually see that many of them over this weekend. That made me sad. It just did. It's going to get it down. Well, I've got a list here because I just thought it would be easier. I know some of these people came on a little bit, but I want to see them in starting lineups. That is the whole point. But we didn't see Pulisic from Chelsea. We didn't see Nicolas Pepe or Dani Ceballos from Arsenal. Patrick Cutrone for Wolves wasn't there. Newcastle had Alan Saint-Maximin. He didn't come on. West Ham's Fornals wasn't there. Manchester City didn't have Canelo. Bournemouth didn't have Harry Wilson. Then there's McBurney at Sheffield United. Jay Rodriguez at Burnley. Gary Cahill at Crystal Palace. Moise Keane at Everton. And I could go on, and I could go on, I could go on, like Ryan Sessegnon with Tottenham. Why weren't these people in the starting lineup? I get it, because a lot of these players have only just moved and they're not incorporated into the system, but I'm still allowed to stand here and moan about it because I'm an entitled asshole. It does mean down the line we can look forward to seeing how all these guys integrate with their teams, but as we are upping or downing, I've made my decision. I especially wanted to see Pepe. He came on like the 66th minute. We are giving it up for Sheffield United, though, specifically Billy Sharp, because they have had to go through nothing but this throughout the summer. Sheffield United are going to get relegated. Sheffield United are crap. Some pundits even like Sheffield United like to boot the ball up and try and head it in. No, they don't. They play really nice football on the turf, and the fact that it was Billy Sharp that saved them here, and that guy's given his all to the club, it is getting it up. And that was doubly cool because it repaid the faith Sheffield United have shown on him. They could have easily gone out there and bought a bunch of new strikers, which they did, and played them instead, but they didn't, and their stalwart, their talisman, came good in the 88th minute to rescue them a point. And I bet every Sheffield United fan, and again, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, would have taken a draw on the first day of the season. Most of the time, you do get promoted. The idea is just don't lose on day one, and we'll build from there. I thought it was a very nice moment. And take everything I just said and apply that to Brighton, because ever since Chris Hughton got booted out of there, which, as we're talking about it, I thought was unfair, it's been the pointing again, like, oh, Brighton are going to get relegated. Brighton are going rubbish. Well, they don't look rubbish. They beat Watford 3-0 at Vicarage Road, a result that nobody saw coming. Getting up. Brighton manager Graham Potter has already shown that maybe he does have an eye for a bit of flair. And again, the real shock here was that a lot of people backed Watford to get in a European place, and they probably still will, or at least they'll be competing for one. But yeah, when that happens on day one of the opening season, and you ruin my accumulator, which you did, Brighton, you've got to call a spade, and you've got your tip your hat and say, well done. And we will keep throwing those ups out there, because while I am no Manchester United or Chelsea fan, I couldn't believe when I finally tuned into the game to see that Manchester United were winning 4-0. I mean, there's a bad start for Frank Lampard, but for the first time in years, United actually seem to have some leadership on the pitch. That's what they've been missing, and it kind of justifies the £80 million they spent on Harry Maguire. Got to get it up. Scott McTominay also needs to get a shout out as he continued to rally the troops, as does Wan-Bissaka, who again, he had a £50 million price tag on his head, which is a lot of pressure for a guy that young. You wouldn't have noticed it at all. He is really good. I think we're going to look back in a couple of years and go, 50 million for him? That is dirt cheap. Also, we mentioned Maguire. He's only been there around 32 seconds, and yet he looked like he'd been there throughout all of Manchester United's pre-season. So once again, I know the transfer fee was big, and you can get worried about it and get scared, even though, remember, fans, it's not your money, it's the club. It's okay, you don't have to worry about it. I think Manchester United will be much more self-assured in defence this season. And if you're not a Manchester United fan like me, that is a worry. But hey, credit where credit is due. What a nice person I am. It wasn't all peaches and cream over the weekend though, because we had quite an interesting fixture in Everton versus Crystal Palace, especially Everton, because they went out and they bought every single player under the sun. And that was kind of exciting for a guy like me, because like, oh, I want to see what Everton are going to do. And instead this match was a little bit boring. I mean, Everton did dominate, and eventually Crystal Palace parked the bus, but still, dull is dull. Down. Roy Hodgson's team also surely have to be kicking themselves, because Morgan Schneiderlin got sent off for a really dumb tackle that saw him get a second yellow, and yet Crystal Palace couldn't do a thing. And this could tie into the whole Wilfried Zaha stuff. I know that saga's been crazy. Boy, howdy do. Again, I'm an Arsenal fan. I was keeping an eye on it, and maybe his head isn't in the right place. I think he came on in the second half, but it was just nothing. And given that the rest of the matches, or at least a lot of them, were really exciting, let the sign down a little bit, didn't you, Everton and Crystal Palace? You should have just tried to win 6-6, as a nephew of mine said the other day. That ain't a real scoreline we get very often. He seems to think it is. And there's, the children are the future, so I'm going with him. A day to forget all around then, but hopefully now Everton's new players can bed in. Zaha can get back to doing what he does best. And we'll see what these clubs can do. I mean, if you are an Everton fan, you've probably got to thinking if you don't get top 6, all of this investment will be an absolute waste. Just my thoughts. And we keep going with the downs, and we'll chat more about VAR later, but in terms of the emotion and the stop-starty nature, that is really annoying, man. Give it a down. And I'm not saying it doesn't get things right, and again, I've just mentioned it, I'll mention it again, we'll talk about it in 1 second. But if you saw the Manchester City game, you know how frustrating this can be. And if you didn't, it went like this. City score, look at the screen, look at the ref, no goal. Oh, City score, look at the screen, look at the ref, oh, no goal. And then there's like this time and this space in between where nobody knows what's happening. It was so stupid. Eventually, players will stop celebrating because they start to look like goose. They run around going, yeah, we did it. And the ref goes, no, you did. You made a mistake. It is a work in progress then, but as it was brought in to get things right and make sure that your team doesn't let a goal in even though somebody was offside, in that sense, that's the point. That's why it's there, to help out the referees. The clue is in the name. It did that a lot. So it gets an up. If you are a champion of VAR, you now have statistics and visual evidence to say, look, that goal shouldn't have been allowed and it wasn't, and that was a handball, and so on and so forth. You may not like the rules, like you may think the new handball rule is absolutely stupid, but that's a problem with the rules and not a problem with VAR. VAR is just there to enforce the rules. And throughout the entire weekend, it did. We even saw a penalty kick retaken because West Ham players were encroaching on the box, and that allowed Aguero to save face because his first penalty absolutely sucked. But I have seen it. I've seen it on Twitter, I've seen it on Facebook, I've heard it when I'm out and about. Sometimes people go, oh, that always happens in penalty kicks. Well, no more. There's always somebody watching. I still don't think VAR is going to be perfect for at least another 6 months to a year, but it's here now, and we may as well deal with it. And we all know how it's going to work anyway. When it supports your team, you're going to love it, and when it screws your team, you're going to hate it. That's just how it works. We'll go back to Manchester United quickly, because it's always nice to see young players performing well and doing things they probably never believed in their wildest dreams they were going to be able to do. So when Daniel James did score that 4th goal in the win over Chelsea, what can I say? I'm a sucker for happiness. Give it an up. He celebrated like somebody acting on pure instincts, probably because he thought he was never going to score at Old Trafford. And look, it was a big move for the guy. Once again, he had a lot of negativity saying, oh, all he does is run fast. He can't do anything else. And on his first proper game, he sticks the ball in the back of the net. Surely, even if you hated United, you have to feel a little bit of warmth towards him, even more so because his dad recently passed away. I mean, you just got to look at the situation, give the man a round of applause. You keep kicking ass, my friend, unless you're playing Arsenal. Then just be a bit crap. And talking of Arsenal, they did indeed beat Newcastle 1-0, but that seems to be the least of Newcastle's problems, because 4,000 people decided to stay away as they continue to protest the fact that Mike Ashley is in charge. Not good at all, and it gets a down. That must be a really difficult situation if you are a football fan, especially if you're a Geordie, because we know how passionate they are. But to want to go and watch your team and support them, but feel like you can't because you don't like how the hierarchy is in place or what they're doing, it's not what we want in football. Football should promote love and happiness and joy, and this is doing the complete obvious, even though I also do feel a bit sorry for Steve Bruce. He just come in there to do a job, although saying that he did also screw over Sheffield Wednesday, maybe things just balance out. There's also still the worries from a lot of fans that Newcastle may struggle this season, and the last thing they want is to be relegated back to the Championship. So we will see what happens week in to week out, but on my end, I appreciate the win, Arsenal. Thank you. Liverpool look like they're going to have another run at the title in the 2019-2020 season, but that's why it sucked, especially if you are a Liverpool fan, when your goalkeeper Alisson seem to go off injured, that gets a down. After signing from Roma last season, he has been a pivotal point in that Liverpool defence along with Virgil van Dijk. But here in the 39th minute, he did have to come off the pitch, and Jurgen Klopp has already said he's probably not going to be able to play in the next match. And that is not what you want, especially on the first day of the season. That's like doom and gloom. The rumour is now that he may be out for about 6 or 7 weeks, and while that isn't as bad as it could have been, Liverpool need to keep pace with Manchester City, and Manchester City have already proven they ain't going to be waiting around. So fingers crossed for Alisson. It's a wait-and-see job. And one final up for the Saturday in the Premier League, because across 6 games, we got 17 goals. And really all we ever want from football is goals, goals and more goals. Give it up. There was an average of nearly 3 goals a game, and while a lot of that would go down to Manchester City, Liverpool and Manchester United, there were still, flurries elsewhere. We've already talked about Brighton. And Spurs managed to score 3 as well, which would have pleased fantasy football people everywhere, because Harry Kane is in most people's teams. It was just the ultimate way to remind you that the Premier League is back, and that we should all be excited until we get to about February, where if you are in those bottom 3 places or you're fighting it out for relegation, you're going to be a bit depressed and be like, why do I even watch this stupid sport to begin with? And that was that. They are the ups and downs from the opening weekend of the Premier League. We will try and do this every single week. So, if you want to catch up on the football, but you want to do it in a weird way, you have an outlet to do it. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about the opening weekend of football, including your team, no matter who that is. Like, share, and subscribe. Head over to whatculture.com, read yourself some articles. Follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureFootball, and watch more videos here on What Culture Football. My name is Simon from What Culture. I know you hate me because I'm an Arsenal fan, but it's all right. It's just sport. It's all fun and games. I'll see you next week.